Welcome back to Learn Astrology with Mary. My name's Mary English. You can find me at www.maryenglish.com, maryenglish.co.uk, and UK Astrologer. Hello, how are you? Hope you're well. Now, I'm actually away at the astrological conference on the day this comes out. So I'm not... because I normally record my podcast in the morning of the day that it goes out, but I'm recording this a bit earlier because I'm not there. And I wanted to do the podcast on Neptune in the third house because I thought it was interesting. I have that, and I wanted to see who else had that and what has their lives been like. And we're going to do a little bit about Neptune in the third house, but we're going to centre on a particular person who did and what happened to them, and then what happened to them much later. Neptune in the third house, this is our lovely Ray Orion says, the house that Neptune inhabits in your horoscope tells you where you can access the most profound level of intuition and where you're prone to deception. Neptune in the third house, you're imaginative, visionary, and highly responsive to the nuances of language. Persuasive, but easily distracted, you soak up knowledge and have poetic ability. You're also gullible, and no one knows how to fool you better than your brothers and sisters. Now, as I've mentioned before, I have millions of those. Am I gullible? Do they take the mickey out of me? They don't actually. My brothers and sisters, well, my brother's in heaven now, but the sisters that I have left have never done that, so I've not experienced that, but I could see that thing as a going. Now, the people that I know that also have this signature that I've covered on the podcast before, one of them is Judy Hall, and I've covered her twice for two different reasons. One was just about her. That's episode 328. So it's the Astro Chart, Judy Hall, author of the Crystal Bible. And I also covered her in episode 437, which is Past Life and Karmic Astrologer Judy Hall. So I think her chart's on there. Yes, her chart's on there. And the reason I covered and I like mentioning Judy Hall is that I met her more than once. I read a number of her books. She was an absolutely lovely astrologer. My two favourite astrologers were Donna Cunningham and Judy Hall, who are both now, sadly, are in heaven. Now, the other people that I know, but I don't think I've covered it on the podcast, are, Robert Hand, who I've covered in episode 97, but I didn't particularly do his chart. I did the fact that, but that's all about the whole sign method. Now, what I was searching for on Astro Databank, first of all, I searched for astrologers and psychics and palmists and da-da-da-da. And I thought, well, no, actually, I want to search for psychics because Neptune's the psychic planet. Don't get me wrong, I'm not a psychic. I do wear a badge sometimes. I'm a psychic consultant. I do readings, but I wouldn't call myself a psychic. We all have psychic abilities, some of us more than others. It isn't something that's exclusive to any one particular person in humanity, certainly not me. But people have psychic abilities, yeah? And because Neptune is the psychic planet, it's the intuitive planet, it's the one where you can't actually explain why you feel the way you do or whatever, Neptune's your man, okay? Now, somebody wrote a review on YouTube about my podcast and said that I don't explain things properly. So if you happen to be listening today, I do hope you understand today's episode. What I do have to say, though, is if you're launching yourself into it and you're just starting to listen on YouTube and you're in episode 400 and something, please go back to the first 20 episodes. Those first 20 episodes teach you astrology. What I'm going through now, because I'm episode 400 and something, is other aspects of astrology. So because I've got the conference coming up this weekend, I'm going to be rubbing shoulders, whatever the expression is, with a whole host of other astrologers that are obviously going to be on the podcast later on this year. But anyway, today we're talking about Neptune in the 3rd house. Now, it does depend what sign your Neptune's in, if it's in your 3rd house. But because the 3rd house is the house of communication, then wherever your Neptune is where your psychic ability might manifest. So think of the houses that your Neptune's in. That's where you can tune into whatever might be a psychic thing. Now, I didn't make a conscious decision to ever be a psychic consultant. I started with just reading playing cards, and I progressed a bit on to palmistry. Then I spent years working in retailing and then retail management, and got back into those things when I was in my 30s, and I'd had enough of retailing. And then also I got into astrology as well, so, and trained to be a homeopath, and later on a hypnotherapist. But because I've got Neptune in the 3rd house, and it's quite nicely aspected in my chart, there's not too much that's horrible to it. Let me just double check. Yeah, I've got some nice aspects to it. It makes a nice aspect to my sun sign, so it makes a nice trine. And I do like to, unfortunately my Neptune's retrograde, but I do like to, tune in's the wrong word, but when I'm with people and I'm talking with them, what might come out of my mouth, I don't always pay that much attention to it. But I can certainly blab, don't get me wrong. But I have, over the years, unfortunately, blabbed things that were true. I worked with a guy once, and he worked driving a van for the post office, which I didn't know at that time. And I was doing cards, and I was doing his hands at that point. That was it. He had philosopher's hands. And I said, the worst thing you could ever do is drive a van. I don't know what even made me say that. And unfortunately, that's what this man did for a living. And as far as I know, continued to do it. But there was me sort of being not quite so tactful, saying that was the worst thing you could possibly do, because he had these philosopher's hands, and philosophers are supposed to sort of sit around and read books and, make judgments on stuff. And his job, obviously had to pay the bills, in opposition, in a sense, to what he actually did. Anyway, Neptune in the 3rd house, brothers and sisters, but that's where the psychic ability is. Now, as I say, I went through Astro Data Bank. There were a number of astrologers on there. Judy Hall, Robert Hand were the two that pinged in my brain. So there's a number of other ones. But I thought, I then changed the search. I thought, let's have a look for psychics. Well, there were a few. I think there was 9 for the years that I was looking for. And then, unfortunately, one of those awful things that happens on Astro Data Bank, to me, I don't know if it happens to you, I came across this chart for this little lad. Now, let me read you the entry that is on Astro Data Bank for this particular person's chart. So the name of the little lad is Arnaud Gourvennec. Arnaud says Arnaud, and the surname is Gourvennec. Gourvennec. I presume you don't pronounce the C. It says here, French youth aged 13 when he took a fall while playing in his room. His carotid hit the corner of a dresser and he died immediately in the freak accident on 18th of October 1989. A month later, on the 18th of November 1989, his parents began to receive messages through automatic writing from Arnaud. His dad, Paul, channeled a book, Vers du Soleil de Dieu, which in English translates in towards the Son of God, Son as in S-U-N, not S-O-N, because the word soleil is son of God. And his mother, Nicole, also wrote a book, Mon Petit Icaire, which in English is My Little Icarus. I thought, I cannot let that go. I need to check this out, what the weirdest of events. So I had to Google what a carotid is. It's an artery that's in your neck. So this poor little lad's playing in his room, falls over, bangs his neck on the corner of a dresser, and that pierces his carotid artery in his neck. I don't know what the circumstances were, but he didn't live to tell the tale. But because Astro Data Bank lists everything, and he came up under psychic. So in what way was this psychic? Well, he's got Neptune in Sagittarius in the 3rd house. So let me talk you all the way through his chart and you'll get a better understanding, because sometimes some of you can't see the actual charts themselves. They are on my Libsyn podcast homepage, which is astromary.libsyn.com. You'll see all the charts in there, but I do know people listening on YouTube can't see them. So let me talk you through the chart. So he's got a 0 degrees Libra ascendant, which is jolly nice because it makes each house in equal house much easier. He's got Pluto retrograde 10 degrees Libra, and he was born on the 12th of March 1976 at 7:40 p.m. in Chambray-le-Tour in France. We got an accurate time because I was searching for double A charts. So in France they record your time of birth on your birth certificate, unlike the UK. He's got Uranus retrograde in his 2nd house, and Uranus is 6 degrees. He's got Neptune, not retrograde, unlike mine, in the 3rd house in the sign of Sagittarius. His 4th house is empty, it's in the sign of Capricorn. 5th house is Aquarius, and he's got his Venus right to the end there, it's 27 degrees Aquarius. In his 6th house, he's got his Mercury 5 degrees and his Sun sign 22 degrees. That's his 6th house. 7th house, he's got Chiron conjunct Jupiter in the sign of Aries. 8th is empty. 9th house is in the sign of Gemini, and he's got his Mars right at the end of it, 27 degrees. The MC's 1 degree Cancer. And again, at the end of that house, which is his 10th house, he's got his Saturn at 26 degrees. And then his moon's in Leo in his 11th house, that's only 6 degrees. But he's got a number of planets. So he's got his Jupiter at 26 degrees, his Saturn at 26 degrees, his Venus at 27 degrees, his Mars at 27 degrees. He's got a number of planets towards the end of each sign of the zodiac. His sun sign's 22, that's not at the end. But I thought that was interesting. But anyway, so I've included in the show notes the date that he died, which was the 18th of October 1989. Now, I've just spent the last few hours trying to find the actual time that he died, but my French isn't that good, and I can't get the books that both his parents wrote. I thought maybe they'd mention what time he passed, and I can't find it in there. I searched for more, M-O-R-T, which is a word for death, and I searched for which is hour, so maybe I could find the hour, but all I could find was the mother in her book talking about what time Paul, her husband, had said he was going to play the piano or something. Came up. It made no sense to me. So unfortunately this little lad died. But so where are the planets? So are the transits for the day that he dies. Mercury is transiting 9 degrees into Libra, and his natal, it's 9 degrees 11 minutes, his natal Pluto is 10 degrees retrograde in his 1st house. So Mercury's right on there. Now don't forget, this person died, but according to his parents, continued to communicate. So we've got Pluto, deep change transformation, transit, Mercury conjunct that exactly. Mars and the Sun are also in the sign of Libra because he dies on the 18th of October 1989. Pluto is transiting through his 2nd house in the sign of Scorpio, and on the day that he dies is 14 degrees into Scorpio, and his natal North Node is 13 degrees Scorpio, 54 minutes. So 2nd house is the house of money. Pluto exactly conjuncts that. Obviously he doesn't make any money dying, and I'm not insinuating that that's anything to do with his death. I'm just pointing out what the planets are on the 2nd house is the house to do with money. But you'll hear some more info in a minute. Transiting Venus is 10 degrees Sagittarius, and his natal Neptune is 13 degrees. So the 3rd house is communication. His natal Neptune's there, and transiting Venus is not exactly conjunct, but it's only a couple of degrees away. Transiting Uranus, Saturn and Neptune, because we're 1989 now, we're coming towards the birth of the indigo generation that have Neptune and Uranus in the sign of Capricorn, and Saturn's in the mix as well, and that's all in the 4th. The transiting North Node is Aquarius, and that is 23 degrees, and his Venus is 27. And the transiting Moon is in his 9th in the sign of Gemini, and it's 9 degrees, but I don't know what time of day he died. So, and I'm not too sure when they do transits on Astro Data Bank what time of day they use. Transiting Jupiter is in the sign of Cancer. He doesn't have anything natally there, and Chiron's up there. So you sort of think, well, what was it that, where's the suddenness? So sudden things is always Uranus. So Uranus is in the 4th, something sudden happens there. But I think it's more, I mean, you don't know, because I've said there's no such thing as particularly a death chart, and I haven't got a time, so I don't know what the ascendant is. But what I thought was interesting was Mercury was exactly conjunct to his natal Pluto, because exactly a month later, so he dies on the 18th of October, and exactly a month later, on the 18th of November, his parents say that they started hearing him, and the whole channeling thing started. So I thought, well, poor lad's gone to heaven now, and the parents are obviously bereft, and Dad is the person that writes the first book. So I thought, well, okay, so what were the transits doing for him on the day that he loses his son? So Paul, the father, has a Libra ascendant, 22 degrees. He's got Sun in Gemini in the 9th at 24 degrees, Mercury 17 degrees in the 8th house. Got nothing in his 3rd. He's got Moon in Aquarius in his 4th. He's got Jupiter in Pisces in his 5th. He's got Saturn in Aries in his 6th. Uranus in Taurus in his 7th. So this is natally what we're talking now. And he's got Venus, 27 degrees Cancer in his 10th, and Pluto in Leo in his 28 degrees in his 10th. And his Neptune is in his 11th house of friendships, and it's in the sign of Virgo. So the ruler to his chart is Venus. His natal Venus is located in the 10th. And he's a Gemini. Geminis love a story. All the Geminis I know, they'll love to tell you a story. They'll tell you the story of something. It doesn't matter if the story's true or not, or it's whether or not it's going to make you funny or they find it interesting or whatever. So it's not unheard of for a Gemini, after the event, obviously this has happened, to be able to want to write the story of what did happen. But the transits for him, Dad, on the day that he loses his son, the Sun is in Libra, which I mentioned earlier. Mars is in Libra, and transiting Mars is 18 degrees Libra, and his ascendant is 22. The transiting Sun is 24. So those two planets are exactly conjunct to his ascendant. And that's a very active planet. Now, Mars is in the sign of Libra as I'm recording this. And Saturn is in the sign of Aries. So we've got some planets that are similar to how things are at the moment. And Mercury is in the sign of Libra as well, transiting. And he is a sun sign, Gemini. And the day that his sun dies, the moon is in Gemini. Okay, so big emotion. Transiting Jupiter is 10, and his natal Mars is 6. So that's conjunct to that. The 3 Capricorn planets are in his 3rd, transiting, and Venus is transiting through his 2nd. But I'd say that the impact for him was Mars and the Sun on his ascendant. So this is how did the death of his son impact him? The moon, for sure, and Mars and the Sun on his ascendant, because Mars is a very active planet. So how did this affect Mummy? So Mum is called Nicole. Both of these people have now passed. So Paul passed in 2018, died suddenly, and Nicole died in 2023. I'll give you the link to their website. I'll talk about that later. So Nicole has a Virgo ascendant 0 degrees, Neptune in Virgo retrograde 18 degrees. Mars in Scorpio in the 3rd, Moon in Sagittarius in the 4th, 28 degrees, conjunct the North Node. The 5th is 3 planets. We've got Jupiter, the Sun, and Mercury retrograde, all in the sign of Capricorn. People that have Sun in the 5th, creativity is very important to them. If they're women and they've had children, they're having the children is, the Sun is happy in the 5th, by the way, because it's the house of creativity. Sometimes, most of the time, people that are women that have Sun in the 5th, that's their raison d'etre. So, like, I'm here, this is me, this is what I do, I've had these kids. It doesn't have to be kids, it could be some sort of creativity. And I've told you before, I've got a sister who has Sun in the 5th and is also a poet, so creativity works as well. We've got Venus and Saturn in Pisces in the 7th, and we've got Uranus retrograde in Taurus in the 9th. Pluto in Cancer, 27 degrees in the 11th. So again, we've got some, so the Moon is 28 degrees Sagittarius, Mercury is 29 degrees Capricorn, and Pluto is 27 degrees Cancer. We've got a number of very late degree planets. And the day that the accident happened, 3 planets transiting through her 2nd house. Pluto's doing nothing. Venus is in her 4th. What's the smacker for her is the transiting Capricorn planets. So Uranus is 1 degree. It's near to her Jupiter. Transiting Neptune is 9 degrees. And her natal Jupiter is 9 degrees. And transiting Saturn is 8 degrees. So she's got an absolute conjunction of Neptune and Saturn on her natal Jupiter. And I think it was last week I mentioned that whichever way round you do it, either transiting Jupiter on your natal Saturn or transiting Saturn on your natal Jupiter is dark night of the soul. It's not a fun time. But with this, we've got Neptune in the mix as well. So if we're talking about psychic stuff, and as I also mentioned in the last episode, if there's Neptune and Jupiter are near to each other because they're religious planets, but spiritual style planets, they're a very Christian family, the mother and father. And so this is what they wanted, the religious side of what had happened. The transiting Moon is not far from natal Chiron in the 10th. Transiting Jupiter is nowhere near the natal Pluto in the 11th. And transiting Chiron is nowhere near there either. It's not even conjuncting. But I think the impact for mum is the 5th house on the Jupiter. So if you give birth to someone Jupiter, you're going to want to give them all the knowledge, and then Saturn comes along and Neptune comes along, and it's like, that's a heavy piece of astrological transit. Now, they both wrote books. The first book Dad wrote, Paul, I think there were 3 to 5 editions of it. So they're messages basically from Arnaud and what he's supposed to have told him. I didn't read an awful lot of Mummy's book, My Little Icarus, because I couldn't get through it. The Google What's It wouldn't let me see much of it. But I did find a website that was constructed by other members of the family, and it talks about their passing, and they're in an old people's home. So this is the mother now. And the website that they created when soon after the books were written, I don't know when, but they created, Mother Nicole created an organisation to help other people that were suffering, because there's no doubt about it, this was an enormous amount of suffering for the parents. So going back to Arnaud's chart, with that Neptune in the 3rd, so Neptune's a psychic planet, the 3rd one is communication. I have to ask the rhetorical question with transiting Venus going there as well. Did he continue to communicate psychically to his parents after his passing? So that's the question that I'm posing today. And I'd say yes. Because why would they lie about something like that? I don't think lying comes into it. Grief can open people up to experiences that they've never had before. And obviously when someone's passed and they're never coming back, one of the points that they make on their website and their writings is that even though Arnaud has passed, he's still with them. So that was how they viewed it after he had gone. So if you've got Neptune in the 3rd, hello, ping me over an email, let me know what sign you got it in and how it's ever manifested for you. But I just thought I couldn't leave this chart once I found it. I thought, oh my goodness me, that's such an unusual story. There's me with my moon in Gemini, I like a story. It's such an unusual experience that the boy has passed and the parents can still communicate with him. And whether or not they are or they're not, they believe that they're still communicating with him. And then we have to ask the question, does his chart show that? And I think it does. I've got no reason to doubt that. So as I say, I'm going to be at the conference when you listen to this, so send me a little wave, because I'm doing all the IT, so I'm helping out doing all the Zoom calls. So we do live broadcasts of people's talks. If you don't want to come to the conference, you can watch those live, so you can pay for admission to watch live talks. I'll be helping with that and making sure people's microphones are on properly and the Zoom thing's working. So I'm going to be with a really nice lady that I was working with last year. So next week there'll be some interviews coming up, maybe not straight away, I might have to arrange a few. And if you've got Neptune in the 3rd house, you want to talk about your chart, you want to send it in to me, Mary, what do I think about this? And I can read it out online, and we can have people listening and they can email in if you want to. And it's lovely to hear from people. I heard from a really nice lady this week. Thank you very much for emailing. So I hope you have a fab week, and I'll be back next week. Bye bye now.